Our focus on this webinar today is going to be physical skills and language skills that make a huge impact in how you're perceived by your listeners. Once again, for those of you just joining, my name is Elliot Shapiro from EMS Communications in Northbrook, Illinois. If you decide at the end of this webinar that you want to get a copy of the slides, or you'd like to get a link to a recorded version, please send me an email. My email should be right there in front of you on your screen, elliot@presentationtrainers.com. That's also our website where you can go and visit and get all sorts of great free information and tools that you can use. Now, this webinar is not going to be an infomercial for EMS Communications. I'll save a couple minutes at the end just to describe our workshops and the coaching that we offer here and ways that you can get more involved if you're interested. We will also be having some giveaways here. First of all, on our website, you can download a copy of our ebook, but we're also going to be doing a giveaway. So stick around, because for those of you that stick all the way through this webinar, you're going to be in the mix for a drawing. And the drawing is going to be a free seat in one of our 2-day workshops that we offer right here in Northbrook, Illinois. We offer 2-day workshops that anybody can sign up for. They're limited to 8 people per workshop. And we're going to have a giveaway here. I'm not going to do the drawing right here on the webinar, but afterwards we're going to put all the attendees together along with the attendees from our last webinar from last month, and we're going to be pulling out a freebie. You may be the lucky one that is chosen to get a free seat in one of those workshops, so be ready for that. But here we go. It's really time to dive into this. Let's talk about the agenda, and then let's get going. A 3-part agenda for this webinar. We're going to begin by asking and answering the question, what's your ideal style? Meaning, how do you want to come across when you're speaking to others? Next, we're going to cover the 8 fundamentals of public speaking, the core physical skills that impact perception. And finally, we're going to discuss communicating with confidence and talk about how public speaking is not only about your body language, but also about your language, about the words that you choose to use. Those are the areas that we're going to cover, and let's get into it. Again, if you have questions along the way, type it right into the question window. It'll pop up right here in front of me, and I'll answer as we go. So let's first ask the question, what is your ideal style? We're going to help you determine that right away, right now, because as we all know, perception is reality. Nobody really cares how you feel. Nobody really cares what's going on in your head when you're speaking. They only care about their perception of you as a speaker. So what you have to determine for yourself is not what has your style been, how have you been perceived in the past, because that's in the past, nothing we can do about it. All we can do is impact what happens moving forward. So you really have to think about, what would you like your style to be? And here's a great way to think about that. Let's say that you've just given a presentation to any size group. It can be remotely, on the phone, it could be face-to-face, whatever size audience that is. Imagine that you just finished the best presentation you've ever done. You just nailed it. Afterwards, there was a standing ovation. They were chanting your name. Everyone was engaged in that presentation. You just finished up and you feel like this was the best I've ever done. Well, here's the question. What would they be saying about you when you're finished? What words or what phrases would you like to hear those listeners use? I'm going to ask you to share some of that information. Into your question window right in front of you, type in any words or any adjectives that you would like to hear your listeners use if you've just given the presentation of your life. How would you like to be described? Let's hear what you have to say. So typing those words in, first word that comes across, confident. All right, intelligent came up. Here they come. Great. Fun, amazing, prepared, engaging, funny, interesting, outstanding, awesome. Came in twice. Excellent. Witty. Here they come. Keep them coming. What else? Personable, dynamic, inspiring, confident. Coming in again. Engaged. This is great. And I'm sure you're hearing other words here that you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I'd like to hear that about me too. What else would you like to hear your listeners say? If this was the best ever. Articulate just came in. Prepared, engaging, coming in again. Excellent. Dynamic. All right. So we've got this list coming at us here. Confident, amazing, prepared, engaging, articulate, funny, witty, dynamic. Enthusiastic just came up on my screen here. Great. All these words are great. And look, who wouldn't want to come across this way, right? More are coming in to the point, trustworthy. Of course. And you really have to think about that. Don't focus on how have I done, what have people told me in the past. You really have to look forward and think to yourself, how do I want to be perceived? What's the perception I want to have? And it's interesting that some people want to be professional, knowledgeable, confident, in control, and others want to be awesome, funny, dynamic, engaging, enthusiastic. And there's no right or wrong here. You just need to make sure that you are coming across the way that you want to be perceived. But here's the question then. Is this the way you're coming across today? Do listeners say this about you right now? And if so, great. If not, why not? Why aren't we always perceived the way that we want to be? And the reason is that we do things physically and we do things with our language that give the wrong impression. And today, you're going to hear what those things are all about. We're going to call you out on all these little things that impact perception. And for example, let's say that you feel confident going into a presentation. You walk in there, you feel confident. But what if the image that your listeners see is somebody that doesn't look confident or doesn't sound confident? Maybe you're rubbing your hands around a little too much, you're rocking around, you're staring all over the place without making eye contact. Maybe you're speaking so quickly that people can't keep up. Then you're giving them a different perception. So that happens. And unfortunately, it does. Now, here's the good news. Sorry about the sirens in the background here. Nothing we can do. But here's the good news. Let's say you go into a presentation feeling nervous, feeling uncomfortable. But what if the image that everyone sees in front of them is somebody that sounds dynamic, looks engaged, seems confident? They have no idea what's going on the inside. All they can see is what's happening on the outside. So you're faking it a little bit and you're putting one over on them. They think you're confident even though you don't feel it. Well, look, which is more important? You want to come across and project confidence. How do you do it? How do you come across that way? Let's dive into the fundamentals. 8 core fundamentals that we're going to be covering here on this webinar. And here they are all together. Then we'll break these down one at a time. The 8 fundamentals we're going to focus on here: eye contact, gestures, movement, speaking pace, pauses, non-words, those are the ums and the uhs and the you knows. We've got facial expression and energy. All of these things come together to create the image of a speaker. And all of these things impact perception. But now look, take a quick step back. You're looking at this list and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I've heard of these things before. Elliot, this is not rocket science. And really, it's not. These are fundamental skills, but these are the type of skills that most people don't think about. These are the little things that most people don't focus on because we're so focused on our content that we forget about the little things. So let's take these fundamentals one at a time, and each step along the way, we'll talk about how they impact the perception of you as a speaker. And I'll also share some tips on how to work on these things. Easy, simple tips that we do in our workshops with our clients that impact perception. Now, the key in our workshops is video. Everybody that goes through our training, and I know a couple of you graduates are here on the call too, everybody gets videotaped. And you don't only get captured on video, you have to go watch that right away with one of us as your coach. And it's brutal. Yes, it's tough. No one likes seeing themselves on video, but it's the only way to really see how these skills impact perception. So let's take them one at a time, and let's begin with eye contact. We all know that eye contact is important. It impacts all sorts of things related to perception. Specifically, when you make eye contact with your listeners, it shows confidence. It shows honesty. It shows sincerity. And then going to the words that you provided before, it shows that you're engaging. It makes it more interesting when you make eye contact. Personable, engaged, trustworthy, all comes through when you make eye contact. Because you tend to believe somebody when they look you in the eye. But the problem is, if you don't make eye contact, or if you're not doing it the right way, then the exact opposite is true. Maybe you don't look so confident. Maybe they think that you're dishonest, not trustworthy, not so sincere, and certainly not engaging and personable. But the problem is, most people think they're making eye contact, and they're really not. They blip around, they touch a person, they look over there, over here, over there, over there, over there. And they're trying to look at everybody, but they're not really looking at anybody. So when it comes to eye contact, what you really want to do is give a complete thought to each person in the room. Whether that's 5 people or whether it's 50 or 100 people, you want everybody in that room to feel like, wow, that speaker is speaking to me. She's engaging me. He's holding my attention. I feel connected. But how do you do that? How do you give a complete thought to each person? How long is that? How long should you look at someone? Well, there's not going to be a time frame here. It really is a complete thought. And when you think about a complete thought, it's really defined by punctuation. So anytime there's a comma, anytime there's a period or an exclamation point, that's the end of a thought. That's when you move on to someone else. So when you think about it that way, it's no more than one sentence per person. You look to one person, you give them one sentence. You look to another person, you give them the next sentence. You look to somebody else to your far right, give them the next sentence. Or because punctuation is involved, you split it up if there's a comma. So you begin that longer sentence over here to your right, comma, nail somebody else with the eye contact. Finish it over there, period. Now, to get it right, though, you have to feel as if you're staring. Everything that you do in front of a group is going to feel like it's overdone, like it's magnified. Trust me when I tell you, it's never as much as you think. Eye contact, it has to be just right. We'll talk about some of the don'ts here, but when it comes to eye contact, stare them right in the eyes. Or if you're one of these people that maybe is not so comfortable making eye contact, the good news is you don't have to look them right in the eye. You just look at that space right between their eyes, right there. Look at the bridge of their nose, and they'll have no clue that you're not looking in their eyes. And that's an advantage to you. So, complete thought to each person. But what if it's a larger group? What if you're in front of 100 or more people? You know you're not going to look at everyone. Well, in a large group, you get the benefit of the bowling pin effect. The bowling pin effect means that you're looking at someone, let's say in the back row, you're looking at one person over there. And what you'll find is there's a whole group of people between you and that person and sitting around that person. They're going to feel the eye contact also. You'll notice it. You'll pause for a second and you'll see all these people kind of nodding at you as if you're looking at them. Well, maybe you are and maybe you're not. But as long as they feel, as they have the perception that you're looking at them, that's all that's important. So even in that large group, pick one person in that far section and one person in that section over there, and you look at them like that's the only person in the room until you've completed a thought. Then you move on to somebody else. Eye contact really does work. We've all been taught that, but there are some don'ts when it comes to eye contact. First of all, don't stay too long with one person, even if that's your decision maker, because after a while it gets a little bit creepy. It's a little too much, and people will let you know that they've had enough. Either they'll look away, they'll break eye contact, or they'll give you that nod, which is really saying to you, okay, I get it, go find somebody else. You got to look for those signs. But really think one thought per person. What are the other don'ts? Don't stare at your PowerPoint screen or your handout that's in front of you or your notes. That's what too many people do, is they just stare at the screen, they read what's there, they stare at their notes and they read that. Don't stare at them. That's actually an automatic pause, which we'll be talking about in a moment here. Pause when you look at your screen, pause when you look at your notes, scoop up that information, then reestablish eye contact. And then it's critical that you finish the right way. So, right at the end of a thought, don't look back to your notes or don't look back to the screen. I'm sure you see this all the time in your meetings, and I'll demonstrate it here with my voice, is the person is almost done and they're making eye contact, but they finish down at their notes and their eyes go down, or their eyes go backwards to the screen and they look away and you lose track of their voice. So the last few words are lost. And it almost tells your listeners this last point is not so important because you're looking down. So, how do you do it right? Finish the thought. Punctuate it with eye contact, looking at that person, and you'll see that their attention is there. Their focus is there, right there with you. Eye contact, number one on our list of fundamentals. Let's keep going here. Again, anytime you've got a question, type it right in. It'll pop up here on my screen. Next on our list, gestures, meaning what do you do with your hands when you're speaking to people? Well, gestures are important whether you're face to face with people or even remotely, and we'll talk about why. Now, I don't necessarily recommend putting your notes right there on your hands as you see in the picture here. It's just a cute picture that we found. But what do you do with your gestures? Here's what's funny. Everybody on this webinar right now, everyone out there gestures all the time. You gesture when you're not thinking about it. But suddenly, when you're up in front of people, you start to think about it too much. So, what do you really need to do? Catch yourself when you're not formally presenting. Try to analyze your gestures when you're on a phone call, when you're just talking to somebody in the hallway, when you're at home speaking to your family or your kids. Are you gesturing there? And if so, why don't you gesture when you get in front of people? It's really because of awareness. Once we're in front of people, we're suddenly aware of what our hands are doing. And most speakers try to get them out of the way by putting them behind the back, by clasping them in front, or by just doing these tiny little gestures that nobody's going to see. The great thing about gesturing is it actually increases your energy level. And you'll find it, and I'm doing it right here, even though there's nobody watching. Every time a person gestures, their voice gets stronger. There's punch in their voice. It goes up into the red rather than hovering in the green. Gestures are critical. And that's why even when you're on a phone call or a conference call, you've got to gesture also because of the impact on your voice. It really is there. As your group grows larger, you've got to gesture even more and even bigger. Because if you're just gesturing right there in front of you, kind of keeping your hands right in the strike zone, or your hands are at your sides and you're just kind of flipping your hands around, they're not going to see it and there's no impact. The bigger the group is, the bigger your gestures have to be. Now I know, I'm sure you've seen people that gesture too much. Yes, there are some of those, but there are plenty more people that don't gesture enough. So you really have to think about what's proper for this particular situation, which gestures are going to be appropriate. You don't want them to be repetitive where it's just the same thing over and over and over and over. You have to mix it up so there's variety. Gestures really are critical in terms of helping you come across as confident and as engaged. And in our workshops, you get to see this on video. Is we push you to try gestures. We push you to go over the top with gestures, and it usually feels like too much, but you can't make the decision until you actually see the video for yourself. And that's where you determine which gestures work, which ones don't work as well. Now, what are the don'ts when it comes to gesturing? There are some of those as well. Remember that the hands are the giveaway to nervousness. If you're nervous, they're going to see a lot of it in your hands. So be careful of clasping your hands together, just holding them clenched together the whole time. Or rubbing your hands, playing with your fingers, squeezing your fingers, or steepling your hands. Steepling is one of those funny gestures that people only seem to do when they're up in front of others. Let me demonstrate it for you. Here it is. Take the fingers of one hand, open up one hand wide. Do the same thing with the other hand, open it up wide, and now touch your fingertips from one hand to the other. All five touching the other five. That's the steeple gesture. We see this all the time in presentations, but I'll bet none of you did this over the weekend. We never do it when we're out with our friends or family, only in front of people. Why? I don't know. But people tend to think that this is professional looking. It's really not. It's really not. It just becomes a distraction. Don't play with a pen or a ring or a hangnail. How many times have you heard this in a meeting? Ready? It sounds like this. Person just sitting and playing with their pen the whole time, or tapping their pen around, or playing with the cap of their pen. It becomes a distraction. No different than twisting your ring around or the hangnail that suddenly comes up. Try to avoid those things, get rid of any jewelry, put stuff down so you're not holding anything distracting. And it seems self-explanatory, but if you stand there with your arms crossed or your hands on your hips, that may give the wrong impression. Or even think about pointing. Do you like to be pointed at? Do you like it when somebody wags a finger in your face? Most people don't. Most people don't. But it's amazing how many speakers will do that. We'll make a point, we'll put that finger out there. You need to sign up. Here's what this means to you. And it comes across almost like you're punishing somebody. You're coming down on them. So don't point. Use an open hand. Instead of pointing one finger, open up all four fingers and a thumb and hold your hand out there. It's a lot more welcoming and open rather than pointing. Let's keep going with these fundamentals. Let's see what else we've got coming your way. Next, we've got movement. And look, nobody wants to come across looking like the guy in the picture here, who looks uncomfortable, who looks like he's not sure of himself, looks kind of nervous. That's not purposeful movement. That's random, distracting movement. We've all seen people who pace around too much, who rock around. And when they do that, they've got all this energy that's built up inside. And it's just kind of leaking out through their feet by all that rocking around. And that's not the best way to do it. There are other more positive ways to move. When it comes to movement, you want there to be a purpose. You want there to be a reason for you to move. And let's talk about what those reasons might be. Well, if you're in front of a group of 30 or 40 people, you don't want to just stand in one place. You want to engage people. So you take some steps over to the left. Go talk to them. You take some steps over to the right. Maybe you move back to your screen. Maybe you come forward to make a point. All good reasons to move. What you don't want to do necessarily is wander around the room. If you're just wandering around the room, you're forcing people to turn and find you, and most people kind of tune out when that happens. So what do? You move with purpose. You say, I want to get over there. You get there. And when you do get there, plant your feet. Literally, stick the landing. Plant your feet and stand up straight. Now, why does this make a difference? It makes a difference because all that energy that led you to rocking around, it's got to transfer somewhere else. And what you find is when you plant your feet, all that energy that's built up and leads you to rocking around or pacing around, it has to go somewhere else. And that energy is like hot air. It rises, it goes up, and suddenly you'll find that you gesture more. And there's more variety in your voice just by planting your feet in place. Stand still. It works. Now, in our workshops, if somebody is a rocker up in front of the group, we pull out a big piece of flip chart paper and we put it down on the ground and we force you to stand on it. And once you stand on this piece of flip chart paper, if you're rocking around again, you're going to hear this crinkling underfoot. And once you hear it, you realize I'm doing that a lot. I better stop myself. It really does work. If you want to move, use your eye contact to help get you there. So we're combining fundamentals here. If you want to get over to the left side of the stage and you've been over on the right, well, look at someone over there to the left. Make eye contact with that person. Walk that direction. Now, be aware of personal space, of course. Don't get right up in their face, but walk laterally. Walk to your left as you're speaking to that person. Get to where you're getting, plant your feet, engage the whole audience. Don't do the opposite, though. Don't look to your left and move to your right. That almost looks like you're trying to get away, and that's not what you're looking for. So some other don'ts. What shouldn't you do? Don't mosey across the stage, meaning don't take these slow steps. It gets boring. It's not purposeful movement. It's just more of slowly wandering. What you want to do is put some giddy up in your step. Take some steps, 4, 5, 6, get there, and plant your feet. As I mentioned, be careful of the pacing or the rocking. The rocking is usually the person that's been told they pace too much, so they stand in place, but they rock side to side, they take a step forward and backwards, and they almost look like they're on the deck of a ship at sea. Not the ideal. And also be careful of backing up. When you back away from your listeners, it seems like you're trying to get away. Walk laterally, walk forward, move over to your left a little bit or to your right. It does work. Let's keep going. Next fundamental, speaking pace. I'm sure on this webinar we've got some fast talkers and we've got some slow talkers. And hopefully nobody that comes across like this auctioneer in the picture. But look, when it comes to speaking pace, you want to maintain a natural speaking pace. That's really the ideal. So you want to maintain your natural pace unless you're in one of the extremes. Unless you're way too fast or way too slow. If you're way too fast, it's hard for people to catch on to what you're saying. You just go, 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 go. It goes way too quickly. And if it's too slow, where every word is separated and slow, it's boring. You put people to sleep. There's got to be some middle ground there. Ideally, mix it up. Sometimes it's a little fast, sometimes it's a little slow. Sometimes loud, sometimes soft. You mix it up. So you keep your listeners guessing, you keep changing the rhythm, and it keeps people involved. Keep your pace mixed, keep it natural, but you do have to enunciate, and this is specifically for fast talkers. When you speak too quickly, your words get all blurred together and people can't follow it and blah, 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 blah. So you do have to enunciate clearly if you're a fast talker. When you do it right, it feels almost like you're a high school English teacher, but it doesn't sound that way. It sounds clear. It sounds to the point. Be sure to enunciate clearly. And then one of the don'ts when it comes to speaking pace, well, don't go too fast. They can't keep up. Don't go too slow, they'll get bored, just like I said. For most people, your speaking pace is fine, like I said, unless you're at an extreme. The best solution, though, if you are a fast talker, best solution is this next fundamental, which is pausing. Pausing really is the solution. You want to pause because not only does it help your listeners, but it also helps you as the speaker. Pausing is critical. When you pause, two great things happen. First, everyone in the room that you're speaking to gets to think about what you just said. Everybody gets a chance to think about what you said. But the other great thing about pausing is you get to think about what you're going to say next. That's why pauses are critical. It helps the listeners with what you just said. It gives you time to think about what you're going to say next. All right, so a question just came in. Let's address it right now. Are there any specific situations where your pace should change? And yes, definitely. You want to change your pace when you are about to say something critical. When you're about to say something, well, and as we get back into the next bullet point here, anything that you want to make dramatic, you want to register some impact, that you want to really help people remember later on. So for instance, if you're throwing out a number where there's going to be some savings, or this is the critical piece of this presentation, you don't want to race through that. You don't want to say, with everything we're talking about here, we're going to save $25,000. So here's what we need to do. Focus on this, 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 this. That's where you change your pace. That's where you pause to say $25,000. And that's in the first quarter. Here's how it's going to work. Pauses tell your listeners that last point was important. You have to think about that. If it feels dramatic to you when you pause, chances are you're just getting it right. Remember, everything in front of the group is magnified. And our clients in our workshops see this all the time. On the video, they can see it. When we work on pausing, we make the pauses feel like they're 5 or 10 seconds long. And then when you watch the video, you see in actuality, it was 2 or 3 seconds. And it was not so bad. When you're up in front, it just feels like an eternity. But remember, your listeners don't care how you feel. They care about how it comes across to them. That's got to be where your focus stays. Some of the don'ts when it comes to pausing, don't rush through them. Trust the silence. Trust that it's okay to pause, even when it feels like it's way too much. You got to let the impact sit there. And don't fill your pauses up with noise. We humans hate silence in the room when we're speaking. Because usually when there's silence in the room, we tend to think, uh-oh, something's wrong. Or I've lost my listeners. But really what's happening during that silence is they're just thinking about what you said, and then they're anticipating and waiting for what's coming next. But don't fill them up with noise. What do I mean by that? Well, that's leading us right into our next fundamental. You don't want to fill them up with the which leads us right into non-words. And those are some of our favorites right there in front of you. There's noises and there's words. So the noises, or the Canadian A, all just little noises that we throw in there. But there's also words. So, like, okay, or right, where the person right, every sentence, right, they punctuate it, right. Now, non-words are just pauses filled up with noise because, again, we hate that silence. So, we want to just take those pauses and fill them up with noise. But why are non-words bad? Well, first of all, I'm sure you've been there where you count non-words, You make a little check mark on your notes for every every okay, every right. And then you're starting to compare notes with other people around you. And so the bottom line, if you're counting the speaker's non-words, you're really not paying much attention to what they're saying. And that's part of the problem, is you want people to pay attention. But the other thing is, you want to seem intelligent. You want to seem prepared. You want to seem like you know what you're talking about. And when there's too many non-words, you seem like you're not prepared. Now, they're distracting, they're annoying, and I apologize, because now you're going to start noticing them probably a lot more than you already do. But nobody wants to come across unprepared or like we don't know what we're talking about. But non-words do get in the way. So how do you get rid of non-words? Well, first of all, you got to be aware of where they're coming in. And in our workshops, we've got a great tool for making people aware of their non-words. And those of you on the call that have experienced this, it comes right back to you. We snap our fingers. For every, like, we snap. And usually the first couple of times when somebody hears that snapping, they think, no, I didn't really say that, did I? It doesn't sound, I didn't notice it. And then after another snap or two, you start to notice it for yourself. You start to feel that non-word almost bubbling up. But how do you get rid of them? First solution is pause. Once you know your pattern, and I will encourage you to teach your colleagues, teach your friends, teach your family the snapping game. That's what my kids call it. They think it's a game. They think it's hilarious. If you teach them, let them teach you, let them help you. Snap at every non-word, it works. And after a couple of them, you'll start to feel that non-word coming up. And all you have to do is pause. And during that pause, let your brain jump ahead to the word. What's the word I'm looking for? What do I want to say here? Put in the word instead of the non-word. Really, it is just that easy. It just takes practice and awareness. Awareness really is the key. That's solution number one. Solution number two, be prepared. Know your stuff. The better you know your content, the fewer non-words are going to be there. When you know exactly what you're going to say next, when you know the next point, non-words tend to go away. So what are the don'ts when it comes to non-words? Don't get upset. Don't beat yourself up if there's one or two non-words. Nobody's really going to notice. Let's say you have a half-hour meeting that you're running and you're speaking most of the time and you use two or three non-words. Nobody's going to care. Nobody notices. They only notice it when it's a pattern. Before every statement. You go into the next one. Distracting? Annoying? Definitely. One or two, don't worry about it. And what other don'ts are there? Don't use non-words. Figure out a way to work on it. Work on the snapping. Be aware of those non-words. I apologize because you're going to start hearing these a lot more on the job. You're going to start hearing these a lot more when you're listening to the radio, when you're watching the news, when you're hearing somebody being interviewed. Watch any sport these days. Watch the post game. The are going to be there. Non-words take work. They take attention. Let's keep going. We've got two more fundamentals here. Next, facial expression. And here he is. Here's our poster child for facial expression. It's Jim Carrey. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you, go out there and look like Jim Carrey each time you give a presentation. You don't necessarily want to look like it because he overdoes it just a little bit, more than just a little bit. But to get your facial expression right, you almost have to feel as if you're channeling Jim Carrey up in front of the group. Most people, they default to being serious. Why? Because I want to be credible. I want to be professional. I want people to take me seriously. Well, that does not mean that you have to always look serious. You don't have to look serious for people to take you seriously. In fact, the more expressive that you are, the more feeling that you put behind the words, they're going to take you seriously. If the whole time you're just sitting up there with a scowl on your face and saying things like, "We are very excited to be here. We've got some great news today. I'm pumped up about this, and I'm sure you can tell," they're not going to take you seriously. You've got to bring some facial expression in. And it does mean that every once in a while you have to smile. Because look, people can hear a smile in your voice, and it's impacted all sorts of different ways. If you're giving good news, if you're talking about a positive subject, you have to smile and be expressive. Show them that this is good information. But look, sometimes it's not a smiley presentation. Sometimes you got to lay down the law. Sometimes you got to take ownership for a problem that happened. Sometimes it's a pretty serious situation. So understand what the situation is. That'll help you determine which expressions to use. But in our workshops, our clients see all the time, you can be, just like with gestures, you can be way more expressive than you think, and it's still appropriate. Expression puts feeling behind your words. So it's not just words. Look, if it was just words, you could just make this a reading lesson, put it out there for them to read, and that's it. When you're interacting with humans, we want some feeling there. So be expressive. But as I said, don't smile if you're giving bad news. Make sure it's appropriate. And don't worry about how the facial expression feels. We're all expressive when we're with our friends, when with our family, if you're with your kids. Or in our workshops, our clients see this when we ask them to tell a personal story. And suddenly they go from that serious mode when they're talking to business to being very expressive when they're telling a story. It just feels different. It feels strange. Again, no one cares how it feels. Finally, the last fundamental here before we go on to a couple of other points, energy. And we would all rather see a speaker that's got some energy than somebody who's boring. And why? Well, boring is boring. And who wants to sit and listen to a boring presentation? Not many people. What's great about energy is it's the great mask. When you bring energy to your presentation, to your message, to your conference call, it covers up all sorts of other little distractions. And they won't see them because it's a great mask. So maybe if you're being energetic, maybe you're rocking around a little too much. Maybe you're speaking just a little too quickly. Maybe you're dropping in an extra non-word or two. But people get so caught up in the energy, they're not going to notice the little things. How does energy come across to your listeners? For the most part, it's vocal variety. A lot of energy is just in your voice. Your voice goes up, it goes down. It gets loud, it gets soft. That shows your listeners that you're energetic about this. And then when you combine it with your gestures, when you combine it with facial expression, your energy really pops. So it's your voice combined with your face, combined with your gestures to really get your energy moving in the right direction. The type of energy is going to depend on the topic. Basically, it comes down to, is it a positive topic or is it a tough, more serious topic? If it's positive, you want to go for the enthusiasm. Be enthusiastic. And if it's a little bit more serious, you push your level of conviction. It's still energetic. It's still tough. It's still strong, but it's more serious than enthusiasm. And you have to decide for yourself what's proper for this particular situation. Now, what are the don'ts when it comes to energy? Don't just get louder. Don't just increase your volume, because then it sounds like you're just shouting at your listeners. Volume is definitely a part of it, and sometimes you want to get a little bit louder, and sometimes you want to pull it back just a little bit to get it right. But if all you're doing is up there being loud, it can be just a monotone just at a higher volume level. So mix it up, high and low, loud and soft. Don't hold back on your energy. In our workshops and in the one-on-one coaching that we do, our clients see this all the time. They think they're at a 10 level of energy and they're only at a 5 or a 6. We do this in our workshops. We try all sorts of different energy levels, turn it up to a 5, turn it up to a 7, turn it up to an 8, turn it up to a 10, maybe even go beyond a 10 and turn it up to an 11 or a 12. The point is, you got to see it, how it looks and hear how it sounds, and you compare that to how it felt. And to a man and a woman, when people go through this exercise, they always feel like they're overdoing it. And when they see it, they realize, wow, I felt like I was over the top. I felt like I was on TV selling OxyClean, but it actually looked engaging and professional and confident. And you have to decide for yourself. Each of you listening in has to decide, am I going to focus on how it feels, or am I going to try to impact the way it comes across to others? Again, that's the key. A question just came in, so I wanted to pull it up here. What are some good examples that you've used to demonstrate energy? Well, to demonstrate energy, really it comes down to the trifecta. It comes down to your voice, your face, and your hands. So to get energy coming out, you can push your gestures more. And when you go for bigger gestures and they're more demonstrative and they're more emphatic, your voice is going to get stronger. Your facial expression changes. Usually, when you take any of these three, gestures, animation, and your face, and you're pushing your vocal variety, when you do one of those, the others are just going to come along. They'll be pulled along in the wake, and it does work. What you have to do is almost feel as if you're a motivational speaker, or like you're a used car salesperson, or like you're selling something on a home shopping network. And you'll always find that it's never as much as you think. Energy is a great mask and it does work. All right, so we've covered the 8 fundamentals of public speaking, but there's a little bit more because if you want to come across with confidence, it's not just your body language, it's also your language. Words have a huge impact on perception. So let's talk about, how do you make sure you're not coming across like this guy? Unsure, not quite confident, not engaging, maybe nervous looking. How do you change that in your language and not just your body language? What you have to do as a speaker is catch your qualifiers. If you're in sales, if you're a leader in your organization, if you're running a team, you don't want to overqualify your statements. Qualifiers are words that make you as a speaker sound kind of wishy-washy, kind of unsure of what you're saying. So here are some examples of qualifiers. Examples: I think, we feel, this might, I hope, I believe, this could, or this should. Imagine I had started off this webinar by saying, I think this is going to be a great webinar. I hope it's going to be, and I believe that you may learn something here. So if you'll consider trying some of these things, there's a potential that it could help you. You'd walk away thinking, this guy is really unsure of himself. Overqualifying gets in the way of projecting confidence. Now, it's not that these words are always wrong. They're certainly not always wrong. Sometimes you have to qualify. But other times you could just let your statement sit there unqualified. Instead of saying, I believe this is going to be a great webinar, I believe it is, I can just say it as it is. This is going to be a great webinar. Instead of saying, you might walk away with some new skills to try, you might? No, I'm not going to say you might. You're going to walk away with some new skills that you can try. Don't even qualify it. Say it as it is. Another level you can take is you can take that qualifier and you can change it. You can make it a stronger word and a stronger statement. For instance, instead of being in a sales role and saying, if you work with our company, here's what you would get. If you work with us, here's what you would get. That's what we do in our workshops, by the way, is we repeat it back so you hear how it sounds. It's not if you work with us, here's what you would get. Change the wording, make it stronger. When you work with our company, here's what you're going to get. When you do this, here's what it's going to imply for you. You have to get rid of those qualifiers. Catch yourself. If you catch yourself qualifying, or we know that that's something that we can do. No, we know that that's something that we're going to do. And here's how. It's not can, it's not could, it's not believe. Make it stronger. Make it more impactful. Now here's the one issue is when you do catch your qualifiers, when you do make the language stronger and more emphatic and more confident, it feels kind of cocky. You feel to yourself almost like, well, who am I to say it that way? Well, you're the salesperson, you're the team leader, you're the corporate leader out there that needs to say it with confidence. And if you qualify, I think it could be, they're going to think wishy-washy. Even though it feels kind of cocky and over-aggressive, it actually does help you sound more confident. So catch your qualifiers, teach people around you, build it into your presentation so you don't qualify, you say it with confidence. So those are words to look out for. And then there are 3 other little words that we encourage our clients to stay away from because they do take away from your projection of confidence. And the 3 little words are I and me and my. We encourage you to get rid of those, to not use those at all, to really use positive language that's going to impact your listeners the right way. Now, when you say I, me, my too much, it sounds like it's all about you. I'm here today. Here's what I want to do. I want to tell you about this. I want to show you. I want to tell you. Well, if it's all about me, then you're sitting out there saying, okay, well, what about us as listeners? We're the important ones here. You don't want this to be all about you. You want it to be about them. What does it mean for them? So anytime you catch yourself talking about yourself, what does it imply for your listeners? Instead of saying, I'm here today because I want to teach you all this information, focus on them. You're here today to learn all of this information, and that's what you're going to get today. You're going to walk away with a better understanding. You're going to have more knowledge. This is about your listeners. This is not about you. So instead of saying, here's my presentation, here's our presentation. Or here's what you're going to learn about. Instead of my goal for today is to do this, let's talk about your goal. Why are you all here today? Your goal is to do this. It's all about them until you need to come back and take ownership. And that's appropriate. If there's a problem and you need to say, look, if there are any issues, you call me and I'll take it from there. You don't need to worry about it. That's strategic. That's doing it on purpose. That's not just defaulting to speaking about yourself. So as much as you can, make your language listener focused rather than speaker focused. So there you have it, folks. We have covered the 8 fundamentals of public speaking. We've covered speaking with confidence in terms of getting rid of qualifiers and using more personal language for your listeners. It makes a difference. All these things come together to make a difference. But please do understand it's not easy to work on these things. When you're ready to work on these skills, there are all sorts of ways to work on it. You can visit our website for lots of tips. Go to the free stuff section at presentationtrainers.com, where you'll be able to download our ebook and get worksheets that you can download to work on content and get reminders of these fundamentals. All sorts of ways to get some free information there. But when you're looking to really take your skills to the next level and you decide, I want to get to work on this, and you like what you've heard today, let me take a moment here to just tell you about our workshop, a 2-day workshop that we offer here at our offices in Northbrook, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And it's called Sell It, Don't Tell It, taking business presentations to the next level. It's a 2-day intensive workshop, quite intensive, actually. It's limited to 8 participants. So it's you with up to 7 other people and very video intensive. During the 2-day workshop, each individual gets to go through 4 total videotaping sessions. And we work on content, we work on language, we work on physical skills, we work on Q&A, you'll work on how do you incorporate visual aids into your presentation. So you'll be one of 8 people. It's right here in Northbrook, Illinois. We limit these workshops to no more than 2 people per company. So you'll get to go through it with other people from all sorts of different companies and industries. The price, $1,600 a person for the 2 days. That includes all your materials, that includes lunch and breakfast, and you walk away with a flash drive that has all of the videos that you've done over the course of the 2 days. You got to just be willing to come in and experiment and be ready to try some new things. The dates upcoming are right there in front of you, September, October, and November. And for those of you that want to sign up, all you have to do is say, I heard about it through the webinar, and we give you a discounted price. We take 25% off the price right there. To sign up for our webinar, you just have to send me an email. I'll give you my email address here in just a second, or go to our website. There's a contact form to fill out. Let us know you want to sign up for one of these workshops, and we'll help get you there. It's very easy to do. Now, for those of you still here on the call, and a lot of you stuck around, which is great, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be having a drawing. And that drawing is going to be taking the people that were in this webinar and our last couple of webinars, and we're going to be pulling a name from the hat. And one of you, and maybe 2 of you, are going to get the great opportunity to come free as our guest to attend one of these public workshops. So look for the email from us that is going to tell you that you're the winner. So there it is, folks. As I said at the mission, at the beginning, it's our mission to rid the world of boring presentations, one speaker at a time. We know that this is not easy to do. We know that public speaking causes stress, makes people nervous, makes people uncomfortable. But remember, your listeners don't care how you feel. They care about themselves. So I'm happy to be a resource to you anytime. Right there in front of you, you see my email address. It's Eliot, E-L-I-O-T, at presentationtrainers.com. Our website, presentationtrainers.com. My phone number right there, area code 847-504-0108. Contact me anytime you have questions. And like I said, if you'd like to get a copy of the slides, I can email you the PDF version. If you'd like to hear a recorded version of this webinar or one that you can share with others, please do. Please share it with other people out there. If you've enjoyed what you've done here or what you've learned, and if you think other people at your company would be interested in listening in, you can go to our website, go to the free stuff section, click on the webinar link, and all the dates for the rest of 2013 for the webinars are right there. You'll find a link to sign up. Please feel free to share that with people. All right, well, I am happy to stick around. We have some questions that have come up here. We've had people that have asked to have the slides sent their way. Happy to do that. So if you'd like to stick around, I will answer some of these questions that have just come in. And the first question that came in is, what if this is a seated presentation? Are things different? And I'll add on to that, well, what if you're just doing this remotely like I am and you're not face-to-face? Well, when you think about seated presentations, they're really not all that different. They're not all that different at all. It's just a different level. You're not standing in front of people. You're seated at eye level with them. It shouldn't be any different, but what you have to do is bring your gestures up above the table so everyone can see them. You've got to be careful of rocking around in that comfy swivel chair that you're sitting in. That makes a difference. All these things do make a difference seated. And even if you're remote, when you're remote and not face-to-face, all you've really got is your voice to go by. But understand that your gestures impact your voice, your facial expression impacts your voice, your speaking pace impacts your voice. So on the phone or remotely, those things are even more important, even more critical to focus on all those things that impact your voice. For those of you still sticking around here, I'm happy to answer questions anytime at a later date. If you want to email those to me, please do feel free and we can engage in that personal discussion. If you're not yet on our list for Speakers Digest, our monthly free electronic newsletter, you will be on that list. So you'll be receiving Speakers Digest every month. It's great reading. Feel free to share it with people. We cover tips and tricks and everything related to the world of presentation and public speaking. You will be receiving those free of charge. Feel free to put other people on the list and share that with them. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your being here today. When you are ready to sign up for one of our one of our workshops, or our corporate workshops, which we do offer to companies, we do these customized in-house. We do one-on-one executive coaching. Just reach out to us, ask for some information. We'll be happy to provide that for you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining in today. I'll be happy to stick around if anybody has any other questions. Have a great day. Thanks for joining the webinar, The Fundamentals of Public Speaking, and thanks for helping us fulfill our mission of ridding the world of boring presentations, one speaker at a time. Have a great day. Now get out there and sell it. Elliot Shapiro from EMS Communications, signing off.